Hello, everyone. Before my time starts, can we give a round of applause for the judges, for the organizers? This is an incredible event. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Bonjour. Good afternoon. My name is Will O'Brien. I am the CEO and founder of Provenonce, and I'm really excited here to present to you Proof of Assurance, a Bittensor subnet for verified AI execution. So AI can do the work, but how do we know that AI did the right work? Verification is what will unlock the market. Agents are already running real workflows, and they're getting into the enterprise, but we don't know whether that work is being done pursuant to the customer's needs and intentions. So this creates a question for the future. What future do we want? One future where we have verified AI, and one future where we don't. When we don't, trust stays manual. It's costly. Pilots stall before they scale. Regulated workflows stay off limits, and every result has to be checked by hand when it's important. The future we want is where trust lives in the protocol, where work becomes audible by design, where enterprises can depend on agentic workflows, and where Bittensor becomes the home of verified agentic work. AI is the world's operating system, and yet it has no trust layer. It's stopped becoming a novelty. It's running real things, real operational infrastructure. Adoption is everywhere, scaling fast. But dependable, accountable execution is not. Gartner says that 40% of agentic pilots and projects are going to be shelved in 2027 because of a lack of unclear value, inadequate risk controls, and driving and escalation costs that are increasing. Meanwhile, McKinsey says 88% of organizations are using AI, but only 39% can point to contribution and EBIT impact. So adoption is accelerating, but trust has not caught up. This is not a capability gap, it's a market failure. It's an opportunity for Bittensor, for everyone in this community. And what about benchmarks? Benchmarks are great. Benchmarks measure models, but proof of assurance measures and verifies process. What does the enterprise run on? Process. What does the world run on? Process. So evaluation falls short. Manual review doesn't scale. Subjective review gets gamed. Audits arrive too late. And centralized evaluation is just moving the goalposts. It's another bottleneck. Whereas proof of assurance requires that you define upfront what you're testing, what you're verifying, that evidence is generated by the run, and that you use deterministic checks wherever possible. So we're starting with structured workflows. V0 is about getting this right. It's about engaging the community. It's about engaging subnet owners who want to have a better handle on verifying their miners. It's about engaging the enterprise and looking at Bittensor and taking it very seriously for scale. Verification, therefore, must be a living market. If you have a verification system, it's stale the day you ship it. But if you have a market where you have native incentives, decentralized evaluation, credible neutrality, you can win. And guess which network was built to evolve with these demands? Bittensor. It's not the funding venue, it is the incentive layer this problem requires. Mining is Bittensor's engine, as we've heard all day, all week, and assurance will only make it stronger. So every subnet owner I've spoken to this week, and it's been incredibly inspiring, Lisa, Jill, Dylan, many people here have said the same question I've heard on stage. Did the miners do the useful work? And how much time are we spending managing that question? Because bad work drains emissions. Validator workarounds add cost. Agentic mining is going to be harder to predict. So proof of assurance rewards verifiable work. Useful work becomes more valuable when it can be verified. This is how the subnet works. At Provenonce, we have defined and established an open schema and standard for a CPC, Canonical Path Contract. That defines the task, the requirements, the validation. The miner ingests that and outputs an evidence bundle. That evidence bundle is then read by the validator, who provides an assurance score, and the emissions are directly linked to that score. So you have on-chain native opportunity to align incentives. Work becomes evidence, evidence becomes assurance, and assurance turns useful work into rewardable evidence. Let's take an example. Here is processing a regulatory system request and submission. And so we have 5 miners working. And each of these miners are processing the same request. Then the validators are looking at the evidence bundle and assigning scores. So when the FDA comes and says, did your AI actually process all of the adverse event reports? You're not just providing a log file or a dashboard. You're providing cryptographic proof. You're providing on-chain hash-linked evidence that shows that dishonesty is economically unviable. It shows that there's compounding reputation. Here are the 5 miners named after their behavior. Atlas is the honest miner who completes the work, who is rewarded with the majority of on-chain weight. Echo is a copycat. Big problem for miners, for subnet owners today is detecting copycats. But over time, game theory and over time reputation compounds, and the copycat is penalized. Loki is adversarial. Hermes is mediocre. Sloth is lazy. And so what you have with this proof of assurance is you're able to detect over time, you're able to define evidence integrity and scoring criteria at the domain level. Proof of assurance is not a universal definition of trust. It's a framework, it's an opportunity, it's a subnet servicing other subnets so that the owners can say, this is my domain, this is how I want to verify. It's V0, it's starting as an improvement. The narrow wedge is very much the strategy. V0 starts where execution can be specified, measured, and defended. We specify before execution the CPCs, the Canonical Path Contracts, define the tasks, the requirements, and the criteria for evidence. We measure from the evidence, and we defend against gaming. We've already built in to proof of assurance many of the industry-leading anti-gaming mechanisms like canaries, nonces, hash chains, commit reveal, and cross-miner comparison. And we'll be partnering with the community to establish more of those. So we focus on structured workflows, which reduce the cost, bound the cost of validation, and we expand after that loop works. So why us? Well, Provenonce, we have been building coordination infrastructure for the agentic era for several years. We've got a great team. We've been talking to the enterprise and bringing them on board to this and seeing what their pain points are. Myself, this is my life's work. I studied computer science at Harvard. I got my MBA from MIT. In 2013, I joined as CEO of BitGo and co-founder, raised a $12 million Series A to build the infrastructure and the institutional trust layer for Bitcoin custody. That company went public for $2.6 billion this year. At Big Fish Games, I helped lead the movement into free-to-play gaming and virtual currency towards an $885 million exit. At Blockchain Capital, I've helped entrepreneurs and startups as an advisor, as an LP, grow their business and directly invested in companies like Akash and Anchorage. And at Provenonce, we've been building, but I really got the tau pill in March this year when I went to the San Francisco hackathon, and we built this subnet first prototype in 12 hours. We took first place at that hackathon in San Francisco. So the invitation to come here, speak in front of you all, speak with you guys, has just been an amazing connection from my past to today. Bittensor already produces intelligence. Proof of assurance makes it trustworthy. I invite you to back proof of assurance, and let's build this movement together to supercharge every subnet's output and make Bittensor the verified execution layer for AI. Let's invite the enterprise to our community because trust belongs in the protocol. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Will. Thank you. You will stay here, and there will be 5 minutes of Q&A live from the judges. So we'll take 5 minutes to ask any questions of Will.
What's a very specific example of a CPC in industry that people use?
So a CPC is a decision. It's actually a codification of how decisions are made in the business. So every business runs on process. And some of those are written down, and some of those are written down and locked in the head of the business owner. So if you take something like a logistics company, right, that is trying to produce quotes for its customers, the request for a quote comes in, and that is processed by a team of humans, soon to be agents. There are things that need to happen. So bringing that online is very important. In the case of a legal discovery or M&A, when you're processing various documents in that 10,000 document repository, there are things that the law firm has learned over decades what they have to do. They have to remain current. So as we're moving to an agentic world where we're just telling the managed agent, hey, Claude, go do my work so I can go to lunch. we're going to run into problems. And so bringing that CPC in, it's an open schema. It's something that can be audited, verified, and shared and built upon. And that is basically the DNA of the business decision.
So let's say that I'm doing agentic work, and I'm working for one of these companies or the government, and why don't I just run that CPC with Claude? Like, where does the innovation come from here?
Yeah, so at the beginning of every tech cycle, it's this, first this skepticism about change, followed by everybody kind of DIYing it. I spell DIY, D-I-W-H-Y. And then eventually it turns into standards, and standards lead to scale. So right now, what we're seeing is a proliferation of using, let's just take Anthropic and Claude, using that across every domain. It's very powerful. But we're also seeing this reversion of the budget, of the token budget, because why is everybody figuring this out at the same time? So what the organization wants is reliability. And I think what the subnet owners, the miners, they want is consistency so they can scale their business. So I think when you get to schemas and standards, you deliver consistency.
So in the subnet, the miners will be doing the stamping, and you're going to be rewarding them for correctly determining whether or not something was done incorrectly or not.
Yeah, and let's be careful about the word correct, because I'm not the adjudicator of correct, and there's not one definition of correct. But in each of the subnets that we're seeing, all these presentations, we saw there was a description, there's a qualitative description of what's right or what's wrong. And so it's about bringing that into a place where the miners can operate, they can produce their outputs, but also they can produce evidence bundles that are hash chain linked that can be securely evaluated by the validators, and then those on-chain weights directly correspond to emissions. So I think of this as kind of a trial balloon for what could be, with all humility, and augmentation and continuous improvement of the cultural norms in the protocol.
Yeah, this is obviously you're clearly a highly intelligent man, and some of this will take a few more readings to get into my head. But the thing that I have a little bit of confusion on is the pathway examples you give tend to cite subnets and working with subnets. But of course, subnets themselves, I feel that it's usually their responsibility to do this, and I've yet to see or hear of a subnet that would think about using another subnet to essentially perform or revalidate their validation process. It would be theirs. And it's obviously a limited market. So what I was interested to learn about was, obviously refute me on that if you wish, but where your then market lies beyond subnets, because subnets are really a proving ground, and how that product works, how that product works.
Yeah, so I think we're attracting two approaches. In the subnets, the conversations I've had this week and in general, subnet owners are saying, yes, these are our common pain points. We're spending a lot of time here managing the miners, trying to manage the synchronization across epochs, trying to manage various things. There's a common set of pain points. The enterprise is saying, I want to reduce my costs, I want to increase my scale. So the opportunity is the more that the mining work, and as we provide a service to other subnets and tools to other subnets, the more the mining work becomes hardened and reliable, the enterprise will come in. So I think we can sit in the middle of this two-sided market, support the miners and grow that, and then also invite the enterprise.